All right. That's about as close to on time as I think I've gotten. Let's see. Maxwell Hauser, 66. Who do I think I am? Nick Rekieta. I can only wish I was Nick Rekieta right now. Have you noticed the guy is exploding all over the internet? Um, yeah, I'll take it. I'll be happily late and gay with a giant nose if I got that kind of traffic. How's everybody doing tonight? And got
I'm still brushing my hair.
uh,
I got a haircut. What do you think?
looks great. Looks great.
Except for look at the static because it's so. And I turned my studio lights off because I probably should turn them on. I look so glary. Hang on.
It's the mood lighting. So, what is everybody having
so
tonight?
bright. I'm not drinking. I'm just having water.
All right. Well, you're being responsible. Happy Thanksgiving Eve.
Yes, you as well.
I'm having my normal, which I get yelled at for. It's like, try something else. Give me a sponsor.
Well, when I drink, I don't drink I don't know if I don't think that's a good enough excuse, Eric.
Well, I can change. I'm just drinking what I like.
Oh, I see.
You know, it's like if somebody else to throw money at me, I might try the other item. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always have my wine that my sponsor in front of me, but
yes,
I don't always drink it.
That makes sense. Rittenhouse Rye. Did you? Okay, that actually brings up a story. I don't know if you saw it. The company who makes Rittenhouse Rye responded to people celebrating by drinking Rittenhouse over the Rittenhouse decision.
Okay.
And it's like, why? They're like, we noticed that people are buying our product to celebrate the decision, and then they got all butthurt. It's like, just shut up. Have a nice little bump in sales and just say nothing.
Yeah.
I have anyway, it's so remarkable. And
they're falling victim to the Black Rifle Coffee phenomenon.
They might be. And you know what I thought about it though, because I was talking to my wife and I was thinking the company I think has been around. I think the Rittenhouse Rye has been around since like right after Prohibition. So forever. Right. And a lot of these companies are run by people who do not think about social media in any way. And so they hire like a bunch of millennial and Gen Zs who lean toward the woke side to handle their social media. And I kind of wonder if maybe some of that influence isn't coming in. It's like, oh my God, people are drinking over this decision, and I'm upset about the decision, and we're going to make a comment over it because we're upset about the decision. And meanwhile, the owners of the company might even be like, they don't even know, because they're like, yeah, I think we have a Twitter book thing.
I don't know. I think it's more likely that they're just terrified of being canceled or having their stocks go down, or I just think everybody's so terrified of having the mob come after them and losing their business over it that they say that stuff to get ahead of it even when they don't necessarily need to.
I guess, but it's like, why? I mean, respond if you have to respond. But they're pointing it out. Nobody's thinking about it. I don't think people were confused thinking that an 18-year-old kid
maybe they're
inspired.
Maybe they're thinking that they want to get ahead of it. I remember I've been in meetings where people have said things like, we should, before the news picks up on this, remember my old job? Before the news picks up on this, we should frame it this way. So we put it out there. We define the terms beforehand. I could see them saying something like that, or having a marketing company that says you should just talk about it first.
Okay. I have a feeling that it's going to backfire, because all they have done is now gotten people like Ziggy here saying, I was going to buy some for tomorrow, but now we'll buy something else. And now you have people who are going to actively boycott the product because they raised a stink.
It's stupid. It's pretty stupid. Yeah.
Well,
it's that whole Streisand effect thing too, right? Because it's not totally parallel, but like, I think about all these situations where it was like, if you just left it alone, nobody would have known better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you ended up drawing attention to it because you said something. It's, in order to try to censor whatever it was you didn't like, or just back, to push back on whatever it was that you didn't like. You never would have mattered. Probably no one in like the wokosphere cares about Rittenhouse Rye.
No, they probably never even heard of it. And now they've just put it on the map. And honestly, a rye whiskey, I don't know if their target market is necessarily the woke sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say a rye whiskey tends to skew a little bit older, a little. I mean, like, it kind of skews to the people who wanted to buy it to celebrate. So good on you. Okay, get woke, go broke.
Maybe they just don't want their business to get burned down. I don't know.
Okay. Well, whatever works. Okay, so I like to start the show, if possible, on something kind of fun, kind of silly, kind of crazy, kind of whatever. This one's kind of weird because professional wrestling, right? And I always found it ironic that like Greco wrestling in the Olympics is amateur for the Olympics, and that one you can't be a professional wrestler. However, professional wrestling like Hulk Hogan and all that stuff, that's fake. But then that's the professional. So that's blown my mind on that regard. But somebody else decided to bring another element into professional wrestling, and it's not fake. This is what happens when a fan gets involved.
Who is a fan? Security. Who the fuck is this? That's a fan. What the fuck is you doing, boy? Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on, bro?
You really think that was real? You don't think that was
I don't know, but it's pretty funny. I'm like, somebody's gonna have to give this guy a contract.
Someone goes, fake, you shut your mouth. Yeah. I don't know. The Hulk used to live on my street in Clearwater.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I grew up. Yeah, well, their beach house anyway. Was on the same street that I grew up on Clearwater Beach, and my parents still live there. And I probably shouldn't have said where my parents live. Last show I said where I live. Now everyone knows where my parents live.
Well, no, you pointed it out, but okay, we checked the footage. You're good on the last. Anyway, yeah.
I didn't say where I live, but yeah, but I almost gave it away, and then now, okay, so all right, next week tune in because I'll be giving away where we'll be for Christmas at my in-laws.
Why don't you just tell all your neighbors and stuff, and then that way we'll get it out of your system with other people.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody asked if we're yellow yet.
For it'll be like an advent calendar. Every week I'm going to give 1 digit of my address away until Christmas.
Oh, good God. You know what? Thank you. I think Ziggy asked, but what are we? Not even 10 minutes, and. And on schedule. And by the way, folks, just so you know, I really do appreciate Super Chats and Locals memberships because they're taking 2 to 3 days now to clear this up.
Yeah.
And, I was griping before about the whole fact that we're demonetized for like 24 hours, and that's about 90% of the views. Well, they're making absolutely sure of it and take it 2 to 3 days. So it's like, no, it will be 90 to 95% of the views gone before we bother giving advertising dollars. And then almost rubbing it in by saying, good news.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, no, it's not really. I still have a video about Julian Assange that's in review from like June. I think they forgot about it. Or it's like, we don't want to say anything. We really don't want to monetize Julian Assange. So yeah. What happened to me the other day, I used video from the Colbert Report or whatever his show is now. No, it was
Garbage.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what it content is, but go on.
Yeah, I think it was before he took over. I can't remember. Anyway, I didn't even play the sound. I just showed it real. I was like talking over it. Hey, remember this video? Blah blah blah.
Oh, was it with the dancing medical implements?
It was back when he did the Sammy the Salmon skit, and he had the salmon from Puget Sound. Back when the science came out that salmon in Puget Sound had cocaine, OxyContin.
Oh, give me some of that.
Control, all this stuff in the fish.
Well, thank you, Julia.
And yeah, they claimed copyright. So my video was demonetized for that reason. And I was consulting with Nate the Great, lawyer.
Nate's amazing.
He said, just tell him no, you have a right to use it. Just argue back. And I was like, okay. So I just did. And they just took it. They just let me have my money back. It was very weird. And it was almost immediate that they just said they released the copyright, and they were okay, but we have to send. They told me they were going to send it to Disney or whoever it is that owns his show, and it took weeks. But they finally just go, they've released their copyrights on your video. But I'm like, well, you guys already let me start making money on it back then, so I cannot figure out how YouTube makes its decisions about when and where you should make money. It's very confusing to me.
Yeah, and it's mostly annoying. It's like they'll make money one way or another.
Right.
Now one thing too, you just made me think of something. One, I want some of that salmon. I mean, a little Coke-induced salmon might be fun. A little brighten up my day. But do you remember, this is probably 20 years ago or so, that they did like sample tests on dollar bills throughout America and found like a very high percentage, like 92% had remnants of cocaine on them.
Oh God.
I forgot. It was some crazy number. All my numbers could be completely messed up, but it was like way too much of the dollar bill action had cocaine remnants in it.
I did not know that, but can I just say something funny that's not really related, but kind of?
Please.
So my horse has been having some issues. I hope she's going to be okay. But the vet brought out medicine, like basically horse Advil, and it's a powder, but she doesn't want to eat it because it doesn't taste good. And so she handed me this big syringe and she goes, you can just shoot this into her. And I'm like, as a powder, like, am I shooting this up her nose? I mean, I really was kind of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. She goes, no, you like add water and then you shoot it up her mouth. Oh, okay. Gotcha. But I wasn't totally sure what the vet wanted me to do with that medicine.
Oh, well, you know what? At least you are actually using veterinary medicine on animals.
Yeah. Good point. Yes.
And not accused of of something else. And that's the other thing. We get to spend all of our time tap dancing. And okay, Gray Wolf. Why don't I simulcast on Rumble? I will be soon. Allison, I think, was involved. We had a locals meeting this week.
Yep.
We're working it out because of the merger. And I hope to be simulcasting on Rumble any day now. Hopefully Friday, I'm going to have a giant law stream with all the lawyers, legal panel. By the way, big proud achievement of mine, Allison. I inadvertently, I don't know if anybody realizes it, but Nick Rekieta is like just gone completely. He's blown up completely. All the legal channels have blown up completely because of the Rittenhouse trial. Like Legal Bites, Alita, she's an amazing person. She went from like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers to over 30,000 over a week.
Wow, awesome!
And they all have just like blown up numbers. And what I'm really proud of, though, is that the term is when you have a bunch of crows together, you call them a murder of crows, or you have like a flock of geese, or you have a herd of cattle. It's like there was big questions on what do you call a bunch of lawyers? And on one of my Friday legal panels, somebody in the chat, and I wish I had him, I should go track it down, came up with it. They're an invoice of lawyers.
That works.
and it's kind of catching. So I like the fact that now I'm seeing like Ricada saying full invoice, da 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 da. And so my big achievement is it was my channel that originated the invoice of lawyers.
I like it.
So
do you have an
crazy
innie or an outie? I'm not really asking. You don't have to tell me. But my daughter did just discover her belly button.
I'm an innie, but that kind of blew me away though, because I guess you are only exposed to your relatives, and then like when you go to school or something and actually meet other people, you're like, oh, that's weird because it doesn't match what I've seen at home.
Right.
Why do you have an outie? That's all okay.
I don't know why. I don't know what causes an outie versus an innie.
I don't know either. It's very, very different, but it's cool. Oh yeah, somebody said they should be called. Eva said they should be called an argument of lawyers. But sometimes we get along, or they get along.
That's
everybody wants. Okay, let me see. Next story. This one is interesting. And by the way, I recommend this site for everybody. Reclaim the Net.
Yeah.
I find really good stuff about free speech, chicanery, different things going on here. This is mind-blowing because the hotel owners literally called the police on them for leaving a 3-star review for the hotel.
I don't buy it.
Okay, well, they have a 911. There's a 911 recording of it.
Oh, so, okay. All right. Okay. I stand corrected. I can't tell you how many people have called, news stations and said, I was kicked out of a hotel for leaving a bad review. And then you find out they bashed 17 holes into the wall and had some kind of drug cartel living with them, and you're like, oh, it wasn't because you left a bad review. But okay, if they said that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is mind blowing. That's why I brought it up. It's like, are you serious? And I'm trying to find other stories that might be a little bit, further astray or whatever.
This is my old company, by the way, WXIA. I actually went there once to train. I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't think I did a very good job because I saw some other stuff come out of there that over the vaccine that I was kind of like,
Well, but I wasn't really confirm if they are good at their sources and whatnot.
Well, what I was there to teach them was how to do everything yourself, basically, because I think I've said this before, but I was what we called a multimedia journalist, which meant I shot the video, I edited it, I did everything. And so the company would pick a few people at different stations and send us instead of bringing in trainers from like a production company, they just picked the people in the company that they wanted to go train the other people on how to shoot, write, edit and stuff. But I feel like I would have been much better used teaching sort of the philosophy or ethics of journalism, but then I definitely would have caused all these people to probably leave. So that would not have. I was going to say,
is that a thing? Or, well, that was back then. This is now. But I mean, ethics? Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say it's more advocacy of journalism anymore versus ethics.
Yeah.
Sadly. As a matter of fact, I hang out with lawyers who are advocates for people, and they're probably more based and realistic than half of what I read in journalism these days. Which is kind of mind-blowing because the lawyers literally are to be on a side to fight for it. But I feel like they're more honest brokers, but I don't know. That's my my personal view.
Yeah. Well, the journalists nowadays, a lot of journalists in corporate news have switched from seeing their job as seeking information to blocking information. Not that they're doing only one or only the other, but yeah, it's gone from we want to know what the outsider's saying, the contrarian, we want to know that perspective, to we have to if we do even find that perspective, we got to figure out a way to dissuade people from believing it and discredit it. We're the people who are putting out the fires, not trying to figure out why they were caused. If that sort of makes sense. And that's very different. And I don't know if lawyers just look at facts differently. Like they're trying to find the whole thing from a more logical standpoint, whereas journalism is turned into an art, unfortunately.
That could be. And I would think that a lawyer, and again, I'm not one, but I would think that a lawyer would want to steel man, at least quietly in their office, the opposition's argument. So they would be trying to find every strength in whatever is being said everywhere. So then they could actually cope with it and tackle that, because, the rules of the court and putting in front of a jury and things like that. So maybe that's part of it too. It's like they are actively trying to seek out the truth. Now they don't want to represent the truth necessarily because they,
right.
especially if they're Binger.
Right.
But then they can bring that out. Now, this is a horrible transition.
I think they understand the real value of the whole picture, because as we saw with the Abery case, if you misinterpret the law and you do your whole defense case based on something that ends up being wrong, you're up shit's creek. Whereas a journalist, besides the fact that it's not necessarily just a person who's seeking out for a nefarious intent, but the system itself under which I used to work did not allow for that kind of comprehensive understanding of what was going on. I just didn't have the time and resources to do so. But at the same time, the stakes it should be high, but you don't see it that way because you're just like, just get it done. Whereas an attorney, it's like, well, if you don't know all the facts, by which, even if you, like you said, you won't necessarily want to promote one side of the truth. You're trying to win your side of it. But the only way you're going to win your side of it is to make sure you know everything in its complexity. That way you can form your argument against it. So you're truly trying to seek comprehensive understanding, I think, of the other side and all the potential loopholes, which if you're doing that in good faith, you could be won over, right? Because you would hope that, like, if you're doing that in good faith, you could be won over. Now, a lawyer's not going to tell you, well, I really think my client's full of shit. But, but they're, I think journalists don't have the time, even if they want to. And unfortunately, I don't think they're necessarily going after the facts for the same reason. Like I said, it's different. It's different to go after to try to prove a narrative or prove they're wrong or whatever, versus trying to truly understand so you can figure out your own case, I guess, with the complexity of understanding that is truly bulletproof. I don't think many journalists who are writing or putting these videos together are sitting back thinking, okay, well, what's the counter to this? But what if somebody countered that? Or have I talked to all the different angles?
And I don't expect them to, but I can't stand the, just the deceit to where literally, if you take the time to read many, many articles, they contradict themselves in the third to fourth paragraph. At least reading. And it's just like the headline doesn't match the contents, and it drives me insane because I know that most people don't look beyond the headline. And then, of course, you've got the, lead paragraph, which may support or may not support the headline. Sometimes it contradicts immediately, and that's crazy. But as you go along, you're like, what? And the worst of the worst are the fact-checking sites. Yeah, where you'll see where it says false. And then as you read all the way down, you're like, well, wait a minute. You just said it was true on paragraph 8. And
well, plus, aren't they all, a lot of them funded by, organizations that have a buy-in on the facts,
like Media Matters, and I'm sure, but it's frustrating. And now on the flip side of it, you brought up Abery, which is like a sore spot with me today. And this is like, I think that we're playing politics, or people are playing politics with the Abery versus Rittenhouse cases, etc. And I was on with Viva Fry earlier, and I just see people going over and over and over. It was self-defense. It's like everything I see from that case, just being honest, I do think that Arbery was casing the place. I do think he was probably had criminal intentions. I don't think he was a great guy necessarily. But
CNN
the
is still
facts of the
saying he was
case,
just jogging. They're
yeah,
still saying that.
which is bullshit. We know that's bullshit in every which way.
Why are they
But
still saying that?
I don't know, and I think that that's part of the reason that there's this crazy pushback narrative, because I'm
Yeah.
saying that
Yeah.
he is not a good person, but they did literally chase him down. They quote unquote cornered him like a rat. That is their own statement that was recorded.
Yeah.
I'm not making it up. I'm not
Yeah.
casting aspersions. They said that.
It's different when you're being pursued versus you're pursuing.
Of course.
In Rittenhouse, it's not the same. Rittenhouse is being pursued.
Yes. And everything about it, he was pursued 100% of the time. Now, I will say that he did make a comment on Tucker that I was like, why the hell did you say that? That's very interesting. You need to get off your media tour right away. Because he talked about, what was it, a chamber assist or fire assist, and Lynn is going to hate me for getting it wrong, but it's not the same as clearing, but it was like the chamber wasn't completely closed, and there's like a assist that you bump. Why'd he bother? Why'd he say that? You know, that was very, very interesting, and there's a lot of other troubles with that. But the Arbery thing, you know, we're like, okay, here's the facts, da 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 da. I mean, and they're like, no, they were parked. I'm like, what are you talking about? They weren't parked. Or maybe they were parked, but it was after chasing. You know, if you drive after somebody and then you put the vehicle in park, and the person, for whatever reason, feels cornered and they come after you, well, there's that whole 2 minutes or whatever time period it was beforehand that instigated this scenario.
Yeah.
And
well, isn't that the flip side of the argument that the prosecution tried to make with Rittenhouse, was that he provoked the situation
with one slide that was specious at best and with bad tests. Yeah, one slide.
The same people who could see that. No, how did he provoke the situation? Can't see how Arbery didn't provoke the situation.
But that's what bothers me, because I feel like that's when people are getting political. I think that, you know, like you said, that false narrative that came out, some of this is a backlash against that narrative that we got lied to. He wasn't a jogger. He really was casing it. He did terrorize the area. All that is probably true. And so they're like almost, I think, overcompensating possibly with that narrative. And believe me, I'm like sitting there looking, I'm like, oh, I bet I'm losing a ton of subs on this one.
Yeah.
Just sitting there with David.
And I want to say too, like, I don't mean he didn't provoke in the sense that he, you know, if the prowling that Nate was talking about when he was on my channel and that we heard in the testimony, I don't mean that didn't have, obviously that began this whole chain of events, but I'm talking about the minute in which that shot was fired, that last few seconds, that's what you have to look at. Like were those guys by law allowed to use lethal force, like by law, you know? And you have to be very careful about, you know, I see this. Okay. I see this when it comes to civil liberties. I see the different sides interpret this stuff differently without realizing how when you want to encroach on civil liberties for your purposes, you know, you're laying the groundwork for that to point back at you. And, you know, I think we have to be really, really careful about how we start interpreting when, you know, you have those last few seconds of interaction with people in a neighborhood, when somebody can, you know, like, I don't know what I would do. I don't think I would grab somebody's gun, you know, if somebody's coming after me, but I'd be scared if a bunch of like, hey lady, you know. So
well, and here's the problem.
What if I kept running and like, she's trying to get
and they
away.
keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming.
Yeah.
And so your tactic of running away is not working anymore.
Or what if I think these guys are trying to rob me? Like, I don't know. You know, what if I think these guys are trying to rob me, and then they're going to be like, well, we were just, you know, and I'm like grabbing their gun because I think they're going to rob me. And then they kill me because they like, she grabbed our gun. Like, yeah, but I thought you were going to kill me. I don't know. You know, so it's just a mess. And I just think, you know, it's just really important to be very careful about when we license people to start shooting each other, you know? So
right. And I feel like
pursuit is against the law. Like for instance, and I'll shut up after this.
no.
When I was a reporter in Tampa, police were restricted from high speed pursuits up to like after 120 miles per hour, I believe. And if it was especially, I think if it wasn't an immediate, like if that person wasn't
right. Like if they had a
nearby.
child that they snatched or something,
Right,
then you
exactly.
obviously keep going.
Yeah, if it was just like a robbery or something, you let the person go. And that's because, right, because it's like the risk to the public of like allowing for the police to consider pursuit is very high for like low reward. And so it's just we have to think about that stuff. Like, you know, what situations are you creating by, you know, acting in these in these different ways. And so if the officer like creates a wreck, or I mean, I've seen this multiple times, like, but okay, well, who's at fault here? Is it the person that, you know, again, like with Rittenhouse, people were able to see, okay, he was pursued, like
He was retreating. He was retreating the whole time. Yeah, it was clear.
We have to see that too in a case that, you know, you may not like. And again, people are going to go to, but he grabbed the gun. Okay, but why did they have that interaction at all? You know, what was, you know, I don't know. And I don't know how this compares to Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, but
Zimmerman, he was tracking him and he was on the phone, but he was not engaging with him. The big difference is that Zimmerman was not trying to restrain Trayvon Martin in any way. He was on the phone the whole time saying, yeah, I'm just following. I'm following. And by the way, I think that the McMichaels and Brian, somebody pointed out that it's not the Abery case. I'm using Abery rather than saying the McMichaels and Brian defendants, because it gets confusing when you have 3 defendants on there. If they had just stayed in their vehicle or whatever and just kept driving behind him down the road, I know that the father was on the phone with the police and just keep following. And then when the cops come up, it's like he's right over there, and let the police do that. You know, let them handle that. The police were there actually, I think within like from my understanding 1 or 2 minutes after it all went down. So they were on their way. All of this is going on, and it's just not a good encounter. And honestly, the police probably would have taken him in. And truthfully, he had nothing on him or anything else. And the police would probably just say, maybe write him up for vandalism, but probably just say, stay the hell out of the neighborhood. And again, I understand that they were terrorizing stuff. And I do think some of this stems out of, you know, he's on everybody's camera and it's really freaking us out. And so I think there's an overreaction to people who are scared, possibly, but it doesn't matter because somebody died and then it just went down. You know, it's, I don't know. It's about the process.
I should have asked Nate this more specifically, but maybe you know the answer. When you say they were terrorized, what are you referencing? Like because if he's, so am I, like, I know that he's going into this house that's not finished.
They were not letting kids out. He was not only going into that house, he was seen on other cameras, from what I understand, in the neighborhood, all over the place. And they had a neighborhood watch system going where they were literally calling each other to, you know, watch out for him and like taking almost shifts. At an earlier point, like a week or 2 prior, he was in a house, they believe, and the McMichaels actually went in with the cops and they were armed, going into the place with the cops there. And by the way, if this whole incident took place that night after all that, I think I would be supporting the McMichaels on that, because I would blame the police for, in my mind, de facto deputizing them in that scenario. So apparently, you know, he was always around. People were freaking out, you know, stuff was missing, and just, you know, is this weird prowler type of situation? Don't know, you know, all the, you know, whatever reason. But again, I can't help but just lean back, you know, just step back and try to say, is that relevant now? It's understandable, but it's not necessarily relevant. They still pursued him. Somebody's still dead. And they're, I mean, I don't know.
Well, there was no, you know, again, I go back to like when I'm talking about the cops and the pursuit, and you're not supposed to drive your car past 120 miles an hour and stuff. You're trying to balance public safety with, risk and rights of the pursued too, like not just the public. Like, is it better to, and I think obviously cops are going to have more freedom in this regard, and they should, because
they have a charter. The cops have a charter. We actually pay them, train them, and they have a certain authority to pull people over and to, if they have probable cause or suspension, they can say stop, and they do have that legal authority to say that.
Right.
These are true civilians that don't necessarily, if they don't.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. So, like, if the cops even have more, they're the ones that do have more power, but even they would be restricted in certain circumstances from pursuing, from using lethal force. It just seems like I can understand. I guess I can see, if I were to look at someone else's argument. Okay, so we pursued. Then the person grabbed my gun, and it was like, well, what if he used my gun? Like, that was the whole Rittenhouse thing, right? Rittenhouse had to defend himself, because what if the person got the gun? Then they would kill him with the gun or kill other people with the gun. But again, if the law is written that, like, which is what the judge said, basically, unless you saw that happening, if it's not a felony, you just can't pursue and do a citizen's arrest. That was the whole, that's the law, and I just feel like more and more, if people say, I don't want judges legislating from the bench, that should be done. You don't like that law and you want to change what citizen's arrest means in Georgia, then vote people in who are going to change what citizen's arrest is. But if the judge says that this is the interpretation of the law, and this is what we're going with, that's the law, then they gotta, that's, I don't know. It seemed pretty obvious. Like, I could see how Nate called it, because I don't know. I mean, it just seems like that's the law.
And it can be muddy too. Like, I will admit this. You can have self-defense going both directions. So, for instance, Huber could have been mistaken and did have probable cause, with the knowledge he had, to go after Rittenhouse, as well as Gage Grosskreutz, even though his is a little more questionable, because he did see Kyle going to the cops. But the point is, though, it could be argued that they saw Kyle as an active shooter with the information they had at the time, and they were trying to take out an active shooter. Kyle was justified in the first shooting, though, and so he was actively in self-defense. So two things can be true at once, and this is a hard one. Now, it doesn't really matter, because neither of them are charged. Only Kyle was charged. So this is more of an intellectual exercise, but it can get complicated, sure. But I think that the juries in both cases came to the proper conclusion, at least with the judge instructions, etc. Barnes is disagreeing. He doesn't see how Huber had probable cause, but the McMichaels don't. From what I've seen, okay, I can get into the details, and I don't want to go deep into it because I'll get my ass kicked with Barnes. But anyway, I think that the McMichaels, by their own admission, said that they didn't see him do anything. They didn't have knowledge of anything. So we're not looking at like a purse snatching situation where they saw somebody run off with the purse or do whatever crime and then pursue. I don't know. It's a questionable, situation. But
I think if you're the pursuant, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. All right. I know everyone knows that, but I just think it's fair to be very, very careful about making sure that if you're pursuing another citizen, you're not you're not law enforcement. And even if you're law enforcement, there's a code of ethics of what you're supposed to follow and training you're supposed to follow. But if you're just a regular citizen, I feel like it's fair to have a very high bar for when you're allowed to pursue somebody, because yeah, like I said, I mean, let's just take this whole situation where I know people, but that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Like I said, if I got somebody run, I'm actually going for a run. Okay. Which probably this wouldn't happen because, but let's just say somebody's coming after me. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I'm going to try to grab the gun. Like, 'cause I don't know what's going on. I mean, imagine how fast this is all happening. And they're like, well, we had to defend ourselves because Allison grabbed our gun. But like, well, who the hell are you? You know what I mean? Like, why are you running after me? Now, granted, I'm not prowling people's houses and stuff. And so I know it's not 1-to-1 here, but still, I just think when, you have people chasing after each other, it should meet a very high bar before you're allowed to kill them. That's just the way that I look at it. And with my non-legal, non-expertise mind.
Okay, and Barnes is bringing a good point about the immediate knowledge, and I'm not going to go, again, I'm not going deep into it. I'm just saying it could be maybe argued of that. I don't know because I don't have every nuanced detail because I was focused completely on the Rittenhouse angle since he's the only person who was actually charged. So
okay,
maybe not.
One interesting thing I want to leave you with that I was mulling over before I go, because I got to run, is how do you think that we and the news label the cases? Because like the Rittenhouse case, it's the guy on trial that we call it the Rittenhouse case. But in this case, it's the Abery case, and he's the guy.
I think it's the multiple defendants. And now I'm going to blame the news actually on this. And I'm going to say that it is going to be whatever name draws the biggest crowd.
I think
that's my theory.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, I agree. I mean, yes. Like, okay, Lacey Peterson, Scott Peterson. Why was it called the Scott Peterson case?
Because he was the villain and everybody's watching the villain.
Yeah.
Now we have the Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie case. I don't know. I would say maybe more Gabby and then shifted to Brian. That one's a little odd. What's other good ones? Because sometimes it is a victim, sometimes it's not. I do think, though, in fairness, like the McMichaels and Brian case isn't rolling off the tongue as well as
but Arbery's a better character because
it's all about whether it was right or wrong, or again though, because I don't know, it is odd.
I think it's because he's better looking, he's better looking. He's got the picture with the tuxedo that everybody uses. He was out for a jog, right? Like that narrative.
Well, they built the narrative, sure. And right.
Well, they did with Rittenhouse too, crazy vigilante mafia guy running around with his gun,
Well, and speaking of narratives, that's actually a story that I was going to be covering anyway. While we're talking about bullshit labeling, how about Daryl Brooks Jr.? He's not labeled at all. He mows down a bunch of people and they say the vehicle plowed into that because, those vehicles are driving around causing all kinds of havoc. So we don't leave Rittenhouse a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh my, that crazy vehicle, because the narrative isn't quite working for them. And here we go again. So I think that whatever is the most salacious is going to move the most headlines.
Yeah, for sure.
Etc. is going to be what's dictated. KM, Nate, Good Logic, Joe, Bronca, they're all obviously welcome. Love to have all of them. We were trying to get Andrew Bronca on earlier with Viva Fry, but because he was in the chat sniping, he didn't like it. He didn't agree. And we're like, come on, please come on, because he's a brilliant dude and we want to hear. But he was at the airport headed to Tim Pool. So, there's Tim Pool and there's our stream. Yeah, I got it. He has priorities. Everybody's always welcome. For sure.
Yes. I have to go because I can hear my toddler freaking out.
She's got the babysitter and yes.
Well, yes, babysitter left and I got to do bath time. So it was great seeing everybody. Sorry if you hate me for my non-professional opinions, which I share, even when I'm only drinking water. I don't even need alcohol to make an ass of myself.
I'll drink for you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Oh, okay, everybody. Let's see. What is it? Somebody said, I think it was KM. probably the most important comment of the night, that I look svelte and black, that it makes me look thin. Thank you very much. Anyway, on to the story. This one was crazy, and I hope I don't get an ad pre-roll, but did everybody see this? This is literally our friend Daryl Brooks.
Hey, can I called an Uber and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please? I'm homeless. I don't know. It's him. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's my ID. My ID. Whoa. Whoa.
26, 500 block Elizabeth, 126. Hey, do you know this guy? Absolutely not. No. Okay.
99% of people are living in a delusion.
Sorry. Okay. Mind blowing. I mean, think about this for a second. He just mowed down a bunch of people. Does he act very stressed, very worried, very anything? I think that, it could be said, don't know for sure, but some people might feel that there's a little touch of psychopathy in there, because he was completely disassociated with anything that was going on that I see, calmly just lying. And then even the cops come by, it was kind of like, what, me? I mean, are you kidding? But then people are not saying what this is. This is an individual, whatever you want to call him, who literally ran over a bunch of other people and killed them. But we want to cover for it. We want to say it's a vehicle, because you got to watch those vehicles. Vehicles are dangerous. Are you kidding? That's insane. And it's completely mind-blowing. I don't even have I don't have a good term for it. It's, other than monster. I really, I don't even see it. Okay, somebody's saying, did I watch this bail hearing? He's crying. Yeah, okay. Is he crying, oh my God, people were hurt? Or is he saying, oh, I'm going to be locked up for my 57th freaking felony because I have an arrest record that's longer or taller than anybody else? Because that I was already on bail from one of my previous incidents, which was jumping bail. Yeah. Geez. I just feel terrible for him. I'm serious. Good Lord. He's a killer. Whatever reason, he is a monster. I'm sorry. I don't have anything for him. Now, I'm going to share another story. This just came in, or I just saw it. Somebody shared it on my locals, on structure.locals.com. I'm not as good as Robert Barnes. Hope he's still around, but I hope people consider checking it out. This one's kind of interesting, kind of wild. And it is all literally in the headline. Pregnant librarian killed in alleged road rage shooting was aggressor. Okay. I am married to a library director. She is a librarian. She has the degree. So that obviously caught my eye. And maybe there were a couple comments between us with her telling me to watch out. But this is a wild story. And I feel like this story, there may be more facts that need to come in. So this is very early. This is the only thing I've heard about it, read about it, anything else. But even in this story, I kind of wonder what's going on. Now, according to this pregnant librarian was killed in a road rage incident, right? And I'm summarizing it. The story link, I'll try to make sure is in the description. And what supposedly happened was that she had hit a motorcyclist when she was driving her blue Kia and then left. So a hit and run with a motorcycle rider. And supposedly the motorcyclist and a witness followed the librarian to another location, the intersection of 17 and 92, or 1792 Wisconsin Avenue. And they continued to follow her to her home while contacting law enforcement. Okay, so I can see this. Now, and why I think this all kind of matters is earlier we were talking about the McMichaels and pursuit and things like this. So far, somebody got hit by her in the car, allegedly, and they are pursuing her while talking to authorities. I think everybody here would agree that this is perfectly fine, right? If they're pursuing in terms of just following and keep an eye, just an eye on her and saying, hey, I'm following her, she's going here, whatever. Does anybody here have a problem with that? Bruno saying probably a better idea to get a plate number, call police. Sure, that's fine. But I don't see a problem with following at a distance, keeping an eye on and being on the phone with the cops. I think that's perfectly legitimate and fine. Now, the weird thing is, though, as the story goes on, and yes, of course, it's Florida. Of course, this is Florida. When she arrived at her house, she entered the residence to retrieve a gun, and a confrontation took place in the roadway. Morales was shot multiple times by the motorcyclist. Now I'm kind of wondering what's going on here, because it's not clear. And this is why I'm confused. They said that she went into the house to retrieve a gun, right? But they did not say that she returned with a gun. They said she went in to retrieve a gun, but did she have the gun when she came out? That's a detail missing. I'm not reading it here. And the other question is that the motorcyclist then shot her multiple times. Okay. Is this an ambush type of situation? I mean, now I'm saying everything all the way to her being in the house and all of this, I can see following, tracking, calling, all of this, right? But now I'm starting to say that I'm getting a little bit blurred. Did she have a gun? It doesn't say that she had a gun. Okay, Dr. Wood says retrieved means you have it and a confrontation took place. Okay, well, I want absolute specificity because I'm very dumb, Mike. And I literally want that exact detail that she pulled the gun and the trigger, because there's some details that are in here. And I think that the situation is odd. Okay, otherwise it's located. Okay. Again, don't know the terms. And then, okay, ramble gamble to retrieve means you're in the process. I don't know, because this may be specific police terminology, so I'm going to defer to Dr. Wood on this. But I am saying, as a person, that I'm very confused on what actually did happen. So, for all I know, she went in and grabbed a shotgun. It was, brandishing and pointing at everybody. And then there was a gunfight and whatever. But I don't see it. And honestly, the whole story is crazy. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying she's not the aggressor. It's just, wow. That's a crazy, crazy, crazy story. And wow, it is it's a bad situation. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that, get everybody's thoughts, and it is very weird. I mean, all of it is weird. Hitting another vehicle, hitting a motorcycle for one. I mean, hitting a motorcycle is not the same as hitting a car. That's pretty crazy aggressive. So it's just here we go. And I believe she was shot outside the home, because it said that where was it? Hold on, let me look at the actual article. A confrontation took place in the roadway, so she wasn't even on property. It was in the roadway. And that's a good point. If she did have a gun and it went all the way out on the street, she may have had to go and maybe gone all the way out on the street with the weapon, which we could say there's a proof. And okay, good. I'll try to get to that. That one is an audio. I think you sent me audio stuff. I hope that's the same book. But anyway, again, I don't know. This is the only, and I always want to set expectations. This is the only article I have read on this. It literally was put on the site. I thought it was interesting. Librarian, pregnant, home, chase. Very, 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 very good. And interesting. Mike Wood has no problem calling me out all the time. It's perfectly fine. So, okay, that is the current crazy story. Okay, castle doctrine usually does not apply outside the physical properties of the home. Yeah, that makes sense. And they did say roadway. So I would guess from the language. And again, I think it's poorly written because I'm confused by the total situation. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's it. And move on to the next story, which is, it's actually a lighter fare. What do you do when your name involves a price and then you change the price because, well, oh, wait, it's not inflation, folks. Really, it's not inflation. We're only raising the price of all products by 25%. By the way, most retail outlets, their entire overhead and markup, we're talking their profit margin is like 10% or less, but they're going to raise their price 25%. Yeah, this isn't not inflation at all, right? Right, guys? I mean, you know that it's definitely. So yeah, I get the $2 tree. Well, there's another place called 5 and Under, so maybe they're trying to catch up there. I don't know. What do you call it? A $1.25 tree? Really? Come on. Okay, yeah. Retail's 3 to 4%. Yeah, I know. I don't know. Didn't know the exact numbers, but I know is razor thin margins, and I think groceries maybe even tighter, like 2 to 3%. But I don't even know. And what? Well, Eric, it's not 25%. No, it is 25%. If all the prices were $1 and you change the prices to $1.25, 25 cents is 1/4 or 25% of $1. I did get taught the new math, and I know I'm not super deep into it, but I think that this one I can confirm just because the numbers line up. So you have $1, which is 100. That's like 100, a percent, 100%. And then you have 25. That would be 25% of that. Anyway, so I'm going to stick with that and say that it is a 25% increase in price. But, I did get taught the new math, I fully admit, and don't know everything. So I do find this to be a remarkable for the math sergeant. I'm more like the math private. $1.25 store. Exactly. It doesn't flow. Okay, $1.25 definitely sounds better than $1.25. I don't know. It's just changes to the 5 and 10. $1-ish. There you go. We're in a trutheth society. It cracks me up. All right. On to another national story. Now, this one, okay, folks, you know that I am very into behavioral science and pattern behavior, things like that, and a little bit of true crime. This one I saw when I was saying, ooh, this is very interesting. I think this broke actually literally, oh, no, it was 3 days ago. So I'm behind. I'm always behind. Ghislaine Maxwell, or Ghislaine Maxwell, or if you're Ricada, Ghislaine Maxwell. He's got a late night crowd, so Ghislaine sounds even better for him. Anyway, she has a trial coming up starting the 29th of November. And this came out. Now, Elizabeth Loftus is the false memories expert that they're calling into the case. Now, a lot of you are going to say, okay, who cares? Right? Sure. It's a memory expert. Who cares? What's the point? Has anybody heard of Satanic Panic? Please comment if you have. Have you heard of Satanic Panic? Have you heard of, I believe it's the McCann's Preschool? Anybody heard of that? Those cases, and I actually had the FBI agent who was in charge of sex crimes at Quantico on my podcast, Ken Lanning. And we talked about Satanic Panic and bombings. He had an interesting career. He investigated bombs and went into sex crimes. Oh, McMartin, thank you. Thank you so much. McMartin Preschool. There you go. That's the one. And I have a terrible memory, so thank you very, very much. There was a problem at this preschool where it was told that they literally had like a basement with Satanists who were doing unimaginable things to children. This is YouTube. I'm already yellow. I don't need to get it shut down. So yes, McMartin, I apologize again. Elizabeth Loftus was the primary psychiatrist in charge and did all the studies on false memories. Now, I'm old enough, I'm very dated, that I do remember the Satanic Panic and everything that was going on. And literally, you had experts, and it wasn't always psychologists, psychiatrists doing it. It could be police officers. It could be a lot of things. If you put people in the right circumstances, and by the way, I have Brian Ahern on next week. Brian, I've had on a couple times, once on the on my podcast, another time on YouTube. Brian is one of the people personally trained by Robert Cialdini, and Robert Cialdini is the top figure for all things influence. He wrote the book Influence, and he also wrote the book Persuasion. And we'll be talking about how to influence people. Keep all this in mind. Now, I am saying here that odds that Maxwell gets an impartial jury, I don't think she can get an impartial trial, Robert, but I don't know which way it's going to go. All I know is that it is being manipulated. I do think that the judge allowing this particular witness in is significant, because you can already see where a defense may be going with this. But there's other news about the judge too. And this one I also found out, it's a few days old, but very, 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 I think, relevant to the situation. And that is this. Chuck Schumer is nominating this judge for the appeals court. But the plan is for her to be confirmed as an appellate judge, but still handle this case. Or to handle this case while her future is being determined. So my question is this, because this situation right here, we have a judge now being influenced by a potential promotion or nomination situation. Now, I could be wrong, but I could see where somebody would be influencing her. Correct? I mean, do all of you see this? Do you see where this might cause something to happen? And I don't know, though, genuinely, and Barnes is saying Pentagon Papers, Untold Stories. Yes, we've got a lot of untold stories. We're going to be doing one soon, comparing Kyle Rittenhouse and Sirhan Sirhan, just to tempt people. But anyway, I don't know which side it's falling on. All I do is I feel manipulation. I feel this going on. The whole Loftus thing is a very, very, very interesting situation. And then you have the judge's future is here. Is Schumer a friend of Epstein? Kind of like, Attorney General Barr, former Attorney General Barr's father, is the one who hired Epstein. And he wrote a really crazy, perverted book, by the way. Maybe I'll put a link to that on my locals. I'll have to remember. But if you guys want to read a very odd book, Attorney General Barr's father wrote a very, very odd book. Very strange stuff. I don't know. So I don't know if this is a case to help her or to convict her. I'm confused. I don't know. I feel like we have to, see how things are going on. But again, only one person answered, and they said I was crazy, I think. What do you think? Tell me. Do you think there's some machinations going on here? Because I think there are. I think we're seeing all the signs of this. And okay. As long as she keeps the case limited to Maxwell, she gets a higher gig. I can see that. But what is the outcome, Robert? What is the outcome? Is it for her to be convicted, or is it for her to just kind of slide out the door and maybe be exiled? Because the thing about Ghislaine is her father is a super spook. It's very, very possible, too, that Epstein was a spook, too. And it gets so crazy because, you've got Gates, you've got Epstein, you've got all these people, and you've got all this espionage tie-in. It's completely nuts. And The Condor. Do I think federal trials should be televised? Yes, absolutely. Wouldn't you want to see this? I want to see it. I would love to see it covered. I would love to see Nick Rekieta and crew or whomever else covering every minute of every day. Absolutely. I think that I think Barnes may agree with me. He can, speak up on this, but I personally feel that every freaking trial should be televised for the public. We have cable access channels, we have YouTube channels. Every freaking trial should be televised. Why not? This is supposed to be an open public forum. Just put it out there. Just put it out there. I don't think that's a problem. I think it would benefit everybody to see that. And also, there's something on the record. It'll never hurt to have a little bit of, we all worry about Big Brother, right? George Orwell, Big Brother and all that. How about Little Brother? All of us with our cell phones were Little Brother. Well, there we go. He does agree. Constitutional right to public trials. Well, this is the new public square. I think that they absolutely should be out there. Let's see. Here's another weird one. And I don't know if it's changed. Barnes may correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that every interrogation, personally, should be on video as well. And I think in Canada, almost all of them are. In the United States, though, it's only a state level thing. And unless it's changed, I think at least for a while, the FBI did not allow video recordings of interrogations. They could only allow notes. So I'll wait and see if I'm wrong on that. But here we go. IRS won't even let you record interviews. Why? 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 Are we not a free and open society? Why can't we open that? Why can't we record? Why can't we know? The only excuse I can see for, and it's barely anything, will be like not videotaping, say, a child who was a potential victim, and they could be identified. Okay, I can sort of see that, especially if they're a witness or a victim or whatever. I can see that to a point. But why don't we want to record everything? Are we not an open society? Are we not? I mean, it's crazy. And yeah, and there's supposedly public trials, but no, I don't make Barnes super chat to read comments. Give me a break. Oh, yes, Barnes has a magic wrench and the big brain. And that's a good question. So Barnes, my thought is that if it is a child or a minor who could be potentially a victim or somebody else who could be identified, some degree of cloaking, I feel, is appropriate. How do you feel on that? Otherwise, though, because it's kind of like this. I feel in those exceptions, that's true, but we shouldn't start from the exception. We should start from the general and then make the exceptions, because we have a lot of that where we say, everybody will find the extreme example that'll be a problem. And then we just focus on that. Whereas, okay, right to public trial trumps privacy interests most of the time. Very young people can be cloaked. Okay, well, there we go. So I would say that you start with the premise that everything is open and public, then you make the exceptions. We have a bad habit of going to the exceptions to find a way to cloak everything that's involved. Why don't we just reverse that? And then say, okay, well, fine. Let's say we agree that all children are cloaked. So we can open the rest? And they'll be like, oh, well, no, we can't. And then they come up with that routine. It's just wrong. And I think this has become even more important, especially considering the Rittenhouse trial. In the chat, I'm pretty sure there's one person who thinks that Binger did a fantastic job and that he's all stand up. I personally think he was a nightmare prosecutor. And I'm so thankful that the trial was televised, or not televised, but streamed. Same basic principle. The Rittenhouse trial, I'm one of those people that it has completely shifted me over on the death penalty. I was of the mind that having it on the table was good for, at a minimum, negotiation. And there are obviously monsters. You know, Timothy McVeigh, it's hard for me to justify his existing, obviously. But seeing the manipulation and maneuvering that went on, and then knowing all these lawyers and hearing, well, yeah, they do this all the time. How can I, in good conscience, say that I support something when I can absolutely see where it's going to go awry? And I admit I was already troubled a little bit because there were case after case after case after case of defendants, or people who are prisoners, convicted, whatever, and they say, hey, I did this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever. Can we test the DNA? I think the DNA is going to exonerate me. And the prosecutors fight it. And the cops fight it. Every step of the way. They just keep fighting it. Now, it's not that expensive. I'm a taxpayer. And I'm actually okay. Why don't we test it? Why not? I would say that, man, probably 95% of the time, it's going to turn out to be their DNA. And it's just going to be like, poop, crossing that last T or dotting last I. But people fight it. Why? That doesn't make sense to me. So that one has always bothered me, is like, why are you fighting everything and stuff? So that sort of had me at a pause. But again, I was like, well, there are people, they're absolutely hanging out there, whatever. But seeing this trial and seeing the stunts that they were pulling, and this stuff hit me directly. I mean, in the sense that, well, I do tech work. I do understand about scaling up. I make thumbnails for YouTube and I scale up pictures all the time. So I knew the stunt that they were doing. I knew that they were using the software. I know how the software basically works, but I know you can't explain it. And the only way you can get it explained is by getting the developer actually in there. And they're hinging all of this on 1/30th of 1 second. So that was a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. And everybody's starting to go off about Hush Hush and McVeigh. So, okay. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on with that. I will freely admit that I'm on another channel, America's Untold Stories. Please subscribe now, where we do talk about, shall we say, the CIA is up to stuff, different things like that. So I'm all ears. Last time I checked, I thought Timothy McVeigh did do it, and I think he admitted it and was fine with the execution. But who knows anymore? It could be completely wrong. So I am going to wrap up with one last story, and probably a little bit of a rant. Somebody shared this on my locals. unstructured.locals.com. And apparently it's not just Nordstrom. It's not just Walgreens. It's Best Buy. And okay, somebody's saying to check out A Noble Lie. Please tell me it's an audiobook, or that'll never happen. Smash and grab robberies. Have you guys been seeing this? It's crazy. Obviously, you have a giant problem when you see Nordstrom's. But I know I shared months ago a Walgreens video with yes, I did have Norm Pardo on to talk about OJ and the theory of the case, which is a serial killer did it. And I also had John Eckberg, who has the same theory. Norm Pardo is OJ Simpson's former manager. Somebody has reached out to me too, stating somebody else did it, and this is a detective that's involved. A lot of stuff about OJ. But anyway, back to this. We've got Nordstrom, we have Walgreens, we have everything else. Everything's going to shit. I mean, let's be honest. This is completely haywire. And somebody's asking, why is the security guard sitting down? Well, I showed the video of Walgreens where they were showing the security guard videoing the person on a bicycle with a cart taking all the stuff out of the store. Why? Because they're told not to engage. They're told not to do things. And why are people doing the smash and grab? Well, because we have asshole DAs who have legalized crime. They've literally said it's like $1,000. It's going to be over $1,000 before you do whatever. Or they are not going to even bother prosecuting. And as long as you say, hey, what you gonna do? Well, nobody's gonna do anything, right? So, what is going to happen in these cities? And is it healthy for them? I mean, somebody pointed out, and it's a good point. Is everything going to be with Amazon? Well, fine, except for what about the porch pirates? They're going to be stealing everything off the porch. Is anybody going to bother with that? I mean, this is just, it's complete madness. And somebody pointed out citizen arrest. So then, where's that going to go? Is it going to turn into a bunch of McMichael situations? Is it going to be, I know that was a porch pirate from last week, I'm going to go hunt them down? I don't know. All I know is this is a problem. And if you legalize crime, which I argue they are in effect doing when they say they're not going to prosecute up to a certain point, you are quite literally saying it's a free-for-all to steal up to that point. And then you're going to have the retailers say, I can't safely have products there. I'm going to pull out. So then now you have people who no longer have jobs. And you have a community that no longer has the products. And let's say it is all Amazon. I mean, what do we want? Do we want everybody to be stuck in their house to never interact with other people like drones? Is that going to make us part of the matrix that you might as well then plug us into the wall or plug people into the wall so they are just going to power society, but not actually have anybody to mingle in society? Well, that's I feel like we're going. So somebody white pill me because I just realized that. Happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. And I'm closing out on an extremely dark thought. But my heart is light for all of you. And I hope that all of you do have a wonderful holiday. Spend some quality time with the family. Try to be... I always like the idea of just being kind. Try to be kind to everyone around you. Just be kind. Be patient. And be happy. Be thankful. And enjoy the holiday. It's a truly great American tradition. So good night.